Hi, good evening. My name is John Goldberg. I'll be the hearing officer for tonight's hearing. Cerise Waiters is our clerk and will be coordinating things in the background, doing a wonderful job, as she always does. So my job, first of all, I work at Public Works. I'm assigned to project management. My job here as the hearing officer is to hear the department side, the appellant, any public comment, try and summarize that. It's not a, it's not word for word, but a summary of the salient points that I use to make a recommendation to the acting director. The decision is hers to make and hers alone, whether to accept the recommendation, to modify it, or to reject it and come up with something on her own. So at the end of the hearing, I'll write something up, send it through the channels, and then it'll get back. Please be sure to make sure if you would like a copy, that you send the information to Cerise so that she can write that down and get that out to you. The way the hearing will go is we'll start with the department, then we'll hear from the appellant, and then after that, any members of the public that wish to speak on that. So with that, I think we can start. I do ask if you are going to speak tonight that you simply state your name and then spell it. I like to put people's name down correctly when I send the report to the director. And then also, if you're representing the owner or an expert, if you could say what your relationship is to the hearing. So with that, we'll start with the first item on the agenda, which is public comment. Members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but are not on today's agenda. So is there anyone that would like to speak on something that is not on today's agenda? Josh, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Sure can, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make this general public comment regarding San Francisco's street tree canopy. According to the city's 2014 urban forest plan, San Francisco had in 2014 a 13.7% canopy coverage, which is the smallest of any major city in the United States. That 2014 urban forest plan called for the planting of 50,000 net new street trees over the course of 20 years. So that's 50,000 new trees in addition to the existing trees along our public rights of way. According to a 2021 last year report by the city's Budget and Legislative Analyst Office, our city is wildly failing that urban forest plan. In that report last year, the Budget and Legislative Analyst Office stated, quote, the city's 10-year average of 2,154 street trees planted annually is less than half of the 5,000 street trees that need to be planted annually to ensure that the city's street tree population does not shrink. In other words, the city is utterly failing our urban forest plan, which is also a key element of the city's 2021 climate action plan. As a matter of fact, our city's 2021 climate action plan, a plan formed in response to the city's declaration that we are in a climate emergency, not only calls for a 25% increase in street trees by 2040, it also calls for the city to, quote, create a policy to require preservation of mature trees during development or infrastructure modifications, and for planting of basal area equivalent of mature trees whose removal is unavoidable. That means only if it is unavoidable do you take out a mature tree. And if you must take out a mature tree because it is unavoidable, you put back as much as you took out. So consider that a sapling tree is approximately 1.5 inches in diameter. If you take out a tree that is 15 inches in diameter, that means that in order to replace it, you would need to plant not 1 tree, but 10 trees to make up for that loss. I would like us to consider this mandate part of our city's climate action plan in response to a climate emergency while we talk about tree removal tonight. I would also like to note that for fiscal year 2022 to 2023, our board of supervisors set aside exactly $0 for tree planting and replacement, which, in addition to any removals approved here tonight, ensures that our city will continue to lose tree canopy at unprecedented rates, despite the acknowledgement that our trees are critical to our city's future climate resilience. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Klipp. Any other speakers on items not specifically on the agenda? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3. Hearing order 207-326 to consider the removal of one significant tree with replacement on private property at 2309 Broderick Street. Staff denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. Mr. Hoffman, I think you're up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goldberg, and thank you, Cerise, and thank you, Josh, for starting us off. So my name is Dan Hoffman. I'm a certified arborist and inspecting arborist for Department of Public Works, and I'll be representing the Bureau of Urban Forestry today. Our strategic plan and goal for our urban forest is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure within the public right of way. So, excuse me. Article 16 of the Urban Forestry Ordinance. Our mission at the Bureau of Urban Forestry is to preserve and grow the urban forest while balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. So anytime a tree is removed or proposed for removal, removal permit is required if the tree is a street tree or significant tree. The ordinance is updated earlier this year in February. If a department is removing a tree, a replacement is required within 120 days or added and tracked on a delayed replacement tree report. If a tree cannot be planted in the same location and of equal value, then it must be replanted at a nearby location. If the property owner or applicant is granted a removal permit, then the department shall require a replacement tree of equivalent value to the one removed or impose an in lieu fee if the location cannot be replanted because of a utility conflict or another conflict. So we are planting trees according to our street tree and maintaining trees according to our street tree SF program, which you can find more information about online. So the first order is order number 207-326 regarding 2309 Broderick Street, removal of one significant tree with replacement on private property at 2309 Broderick Street. So the Bureau of Urban Forestry staff denied the removal of the tree, and the applicant has requested a public hearing to discuss this issue. So the tree in question at 2309 Broderick Street is a Norfolk Island pine, Araucaria heterophylla. This tree is roughly 50 feet tall. The diameter at breast height is 33 inches. The overall tree condition is fair. So noting deficiencies are multiple main leaders near the top of the tree. The location of the tree is not ideal, specifically because it's so close to the adjacent structure. It's not a problem for the high voltage power lines, and it has sufficient clearance. So this tree, especially in this location and throughout the city, is a prominent landscape feature, and it is a very notable visual form and part of the area's skyline. So this tree is a significant tree. It's on private property within a setback in a kind of unconventional 10-foot by 6-foot planting area. It's a little bit raised, but not significantly. And there is a brick retaining wall around this area. So the public right of way is about 15 feet, is 15 feet at this location. And you can see in this picture, the sidewalk takes up that 15 feet and the private property starts right at that wall. Here's another photo of the tree from up the block. And here you can see the tree at the bottom of the hill. And even further back, 2 blocks away, this tree is still visible. So it's a pretty prominent tree for this area. Here's another view. So here's some information about the species of the tree. They're considered an architecturally stunning species, and they have an interesting history here in San Francisco. We don't have to go into all of this, but it is here for people to take a look at. This particular tree, according to the inspecting arborist who's got this permit case, has been here since about 1938. And again, we can see some photograph evidence that the tree is here in 1964. So we're estimating that this tree is a pretty old tree, possibly about 100 years old. The reason for removal is the applicant has applied to remove this tree on their own, and they state that the tree has outgrown its planting space. It is doing some damage to this retaining wall here, and it is very close to the structure of the building. The reason the Bureau has denied this removal is we believe that the tree can be managed and retained by pruning and taking some other actions to enhance the space for the tree. The damage to the wall isn't necessary, and even if they wanted to replace the wall, removal of the tree we don't think is necessary. So this is just a proposed solution by the inspecting arborist. And earlier in the photo, you could see that the neighbor down the way has built a kind of a wall into the right of way. And if the applicant wanted to, make some more space with landscape area, they'd be able to do that without, having any issues, and that, permit would be granted pretty easily. One of the questions that we had is that as a significant tree in San Francisco, it doesn't appear to have been maintained. It probably hasn't been pruned in, more than 10 years. So we'd like to see that maintenance be completed to try to resolve any of those issues, and maybe some more, maybe architectural designs or something from a structural engineer saying that the tree needs to be removed if they want to replace the wall. We'd like to see those types of things before approving the removal of a tree like this. And then just more evidence of the condition of the tree. So in the arborist report, they noted that the raised planting area is a real issue for this tree. But we believe that, we can extend that area with a sidewalk landscape application or permit, and we'd be able to retain the tree. Excuse me. So the failure risk, we believe, is low, maybe moderate. with being very conservative. So again, pruning can reduce that risk as well. And we have a question as why it hasn't been maintained. And if the tree were to be approved for removal, the location can be replanted. And here are some proposed tree well locations. Okay, so I think we've gone through this tree enough, and we've denied the tree here.
Okay, before I move to the appellant, just while I have it in my mind before I forget, you raised a couple of questions regarding you'd like to see some structural reports from structural engineers and other kinds of people. Have those been requested, or as opposed to I mean, in the time when we were just the department was discussing this, have any of those requests been made of the applicant? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with all the conversation that's gone on with the inspecting arborist and the applicants for this case. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Can you put back to that last screen also? There were some rhetorical questions, and perhaps when the applicant speaks, they can answer, if they can answer some of those.
This one?
Yeah, if you just leave that up for now, just so that if the applicant wants to, or the appellant would like to answer any of these questions, it might be helpful both for everyone involved. Okay, is the applicant here to speak, or the appellant? Excuse me. See, I see one hand raised. Yes, no? Yes. Tracy Edmondson.
Hi, yes, this is Tracy Edmondson, not the appellant, but an interested party in this matter. So if the appellant is not on, I'd be happy to speak.
Okay, well, okay. We have that. Let's see if the appellant's here. Tanya Miller, are you the appellant?
There's unmute. There we go. Hi, yes, I am here.
Okay, would you like to speak to this matter?
I would very much. Thank you. So good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Tanya High Miller, and I'm sitting here with my dad, Ken High. This is the set of, and our arborist also is on the call as well. This is the apartment that my dad, who's 84, grew up in, and my grandparents lived in since 1935. I believe they actually planted the tree when they moved in. It might have been the original owners. They were the second owners. They rented and then eventually purchased the property. So we have a great history with this tree. So we do not ask for this request lightly. It has certainly been a part of our family's ownership. We have, so I'll just address a couple of the questions I think you asked. You're right, we have not trimmed the tree. It's been about 12 years, and we have that lined up if we would like, we are hoping that we will receive our permit to take it down. Otherwise, we have done minimal trimming in the last 10 years, more like pole saw within the reach of a pole saw, but it's been about 10 years since we had a major, and it was very major last time. Let's see, I'm trying to look at a couple of the questions that were asked. So I would like to address some of the reasons we would like the tree removed. The primary reason is the damage that's already been created. The roots have fractured the brick garden wall, the sidewalk on out in front of the house, as well as the brick walkways into both of the apartments. There's also concern from our neighbor that the that the roots are pressing on the wall, the retaining wall that sits between us and our lower neighbor. So it can be assumed if the roots are pushing on the brick walkway as visibly as they are and on the brick retaining retaining wall, which it didn't show well in those pictures how much it has been displaced. There is great concern from both us and the engineer that it is doing that to the structure of the house. There was a question as to whether we had an engineer. We do have two different engineering reports, both a structural engineer and a geotechnical engineer, who have looked at it, and their opinion is that it should come down. If you figure that the root structure is the size of the canopy, then that tree the root structure doesn't have a place to go. So therefore it's going into the wall, the bricks, the sidewalk,
30 seconds.
our roots, and our plumbing. We're having plumbing issues as a problem. On top of that, we would like very much, just from a aesthetic standpoint, like most of the trees in the city are out on the street. As you saw in some of those photos, actually the pictures on the opposite side of the street are beautiful, lush, full trees that are more appropriate for the city. We'd be happy to do some sort of hey, as someone suggested, like, hey, this tree is 5 times the size of other trees, then we will plant one in the front, one in the back, some down the street. We'd be happy to accommodate the need for the city to have more trees in a way that feels not only safer, but just better. Our neighbors, we have multiple neighbors who have expressed concern. I have a letter from one of the neighbors. Our downhill neighbor has requested many times that we take out the tree. He's not only concerned about the retaining wall, but he's concerned about the integrity of the tree and it falling on his house. Our neighbor across the street has been there for many, many, many years too, and has witnessed the branches that have fallen from it. The little branch, not the branches, but just the leaves, they're like ball bearings on the hill when it's a steep hill with these little rolling leaves. And when it's wet and or not wet, those things roll when you walk on them, and it can be very dangerous.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. You're beyond your time.
Okay, Ms. Miller, have you submitted the letters and the engineering reports?
No, I have not been asked. I today asked what they needed and was under the impression that the letter that they'd gotten from our arborist was sufficient.
Okay, if you could please submit the engineering reports, letters from the neighbor, and if you've already submitted the arborist report, and I will review those. So if you would get those in tomorrow, if that's possible.
Easy peasy. Do I send them to just the urban forestry email address that I've been communicating with? I think Sarah and Susan have been the primary people I've been talking with.
Yes, that's the correct address.
Okay, perfect.
Great, and then Cerise will get those to me, and I'll include that information in my recommendations to the director.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Who is next up? Tracy? Ms. Edmonds?
Hi, yes,
Edmondson.
thank you. Tracy Edmondson, TRACY EDMONSON. And I'm
Okay.
here with my husband, John
Okay,
Scow, JOHN SKOW. And
SKOW?
yes,
Okay,
and we are in fact the neighbors that Ms. Miller was referring to, and we have been neighbors and good neighbors with the Highs for over 20 years. And we fully support the removal of this tree for the reasons that Tanya described earlier. I just want to emphasize a few things. We also have a report from a structural engineer suggesting that it is time for this tree to be removed due to the potential catastrophic consequences of that tree failing. Your own arborist report says that it is highly likely that this tree will fail. And if that tree fails, it falls right on our house, which is directly beneath the Highs property. But the immediate concern is that the root structure of this tree is so far reaching that it has pressed our retaining wall to the point, the retaining wall between the two properties. So the retaining wall has now been pushed 6 inches out onto our property because of the pressure from this tree. So the first thing is that retaining wall is going to fail. And then the tree is going to fall, and it's going to fall right on our house. So we're very, very happy for the tree to be replaced with anything that is appropriate for the size of that lot. We're not anti-tree at all. We're going to be planting our own trees next to our own house. But this is a really dangerous situation for this tree. And we'd be happy to share our structural report from our engineer as well, as long as somebody can tell us where to send it. Thank you.
Yes, please.
This-
Thank you very much. Yes, please, if you would share that and send it to urbanforestry@sfgov.org. Is that correct, Cerise?
Urban forestry at sfdpw.org.
Got it. See, thank you for correcting me.
Yes.
So,
And I'm sorry, I think my husband had one thing to add.
This is John Scow. I also have a photograph of the brick retaining wall that is at the south end of the applicant's property. And it shows the focus of the department's presentation appeared to be the very small retaining wall between the property line and the front walk, or the walkway in front of the building, that 3-foot retaining wall in that photograph. Just immediately to the south of this, about 4 feet, is a 9-foot retaining wall, brick retaining wall that is it's got a big crack in the middle of it, and it's leaning about 6 inches. And the engineers looked at it. My wife has mentioned the conclusion of that. I just wanted to let you know I have a photograph of that wall. And that wall really wasn't talked about by the department, and I'm just wondering whether they even knew about it. But it seemed it's very much of a concern because there's no footing under that wall. It's just a 9-foot brick wall, and the engineer's conclusion is that the tree roots are what's causing that wall to fail.
thank you, Mr. Scow. If you would also submit that photo, that, any information is helpful in making a recommendation. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? Teresa, is there anyone with their hand up? There's a Mr. Cliff, do
Yes.
you want to start?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure can, Mr. Cliff, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the reasons that San Francisco has such a pathetic urban canopy is because we've developed up to every property line and really left inadequate space for nature to thrive. And nature is something that we need not just for our climate resilience, but also our community health and our failing ecosystems. And a 33-inch diameter mature Norfolk Island pine is really a spot-on example of what our climate action plan is talking about and our need to preserve mature trees for our climate and eco resilience. I have not seen any of the reports, so I can't speak to that, and they weren't provided to the department ahead of time, so he wasn't able to present those to the public. What I will say is that that happens in every single tree removal hearing. And again, I'm not discounting it. I haven't seen them. I would just point out that I don't think I've ever seen a tree removal applicant whose application was denied not provide some type of engineering or structural report that found the tree to be a hazard or some emergent issue. To the extent that this presentation was done on the information available prior to the hearing, it appears that there are ways that this tree can be preserved if we wanted to do that to alleviate the concerns. And I would also point out that our city inspectors hear these kinds of concerns every day all over the city. And so the fact that this was denied is remarkable. I do appreciate the applicant's offer to replace the trees, replace numerous trees. I would note that even if this were written into the decision, the promise is unenforceable. And there would also be the issue then of who would be responsible for their watering and their maintenance. Just in closing, the city has recommended numerous ways to address the issues that were raised here. And this is, again, precisely the type of scenario that our climate action plan anticipates regarding preserving a mature tree canopy. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Cliff. Next speaker. Jesse?
Yes, hello, Jesse DeVos.
Mr. DeVos, can you spell your last name? DEVOS?
OS,
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
consulting arborist, tree preservation expert. I did the report on this tree, one of the reports, and took a look. So the recommendation on this tree is removal. Unfortunately, it just kind of fits right in between all of our measurables in terms of one thing to point to. But all indications are that this tree has outgrown the space it's in and is at risk for failure. Unfortunately, we need to look at the right tree in the right place for especially, and that's much more important when we're looking at urban canopies and sustainability. It's a good candidate for replacement with something that has a little more longer term viability. I think that's pretty much the long and short of it on this tree. It was a pretty clear question in my mind, unfortunately, again. So that's all I have on that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. DeVos.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, I believe you only get one bite at the apple. I'm sorry. Otherwise, we'll end up, going around with everyone. Any new person wish to speak? Anyone new? Okay, hearing none, we'll close this item. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next item, number 4 on the agenda. To consider removal of one street tree with replacement elsewhere on the block adjacent to 45 Brazil Avenue. Applicant to pay in lieu fee, staff approved, and the public has protested. Okay, Mr. Hoffman, I believe you're up.
All right, so this tree is located adjacent to 45 Brazil Ave. I guess that's at the corner of Brazil and London. It's a little gem magnolia, and the tree's about 8 feet. It's in very good condition. No failures. Pretty healthy tree. The inspecting arborist didn't provide a lot of information on these slides here. So the information I've been given is that PG&E and the Department of Public Works Bureau of Street Use and Mapping have determined that a surface mounted facility is needed at this tree location. And this location is the only viable spot where the new infrastructure will go in. So I guess this is an electrical upgrade infrastructure project, and the tree is in the only spot for that surface mounted bulb. And the removal has been approved. The tree was not considered during BSM's review. We've received one letter of protest, and there is ample space along the block for us to plant a replacement tree. And there you have it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Would the appellant like to speak?
Hi, Mr. Goldberg. Yes, my name is Bill Chang, Billchian as in Nancy G. I am one of PG&E's local government affairs representatives here on behalf of PG&E as the appellant. Also with me is one of our project manager engineers. His name is Anson Wong, ANSON WONG, and we're here to provide some contextual information regarding this project and to also answer any questions. This location is, let me back up. The project is a gas upgrade project. The construction details includes a natural gas regulator station that is designed to be a replacement for an existing regulator station that is nearby. The standards have changed and the technology has changed. And so the new reg station has a somewhat larger footprint than the previous location. And so working with the city, working with Public Works, the collective we identified this location as the most ideal for the natural gas upgrade project. Up and down the street, in order to avoid driveways, doorways, windows, things like that. So this location was chosen as the least of the many evils in terms of interfering with the residents. And as the previous speaker said, this tree can be relocated. We just asked that to continue working with PG&E to identify the most appropriate spot. A previous speaker, I think it was a certified arborist who said the phrase "right tree, right place," and that is a mantra over at PG&E that we try to stick with to identify the right species and the right place when a tree is planted. Let me also take this opportunity to encourage the use of 811 when doing any kind of excavation, including trees, to pay attention to the utility facilities that are overhead as well as underground. Thank you. Here to answer any questions.
Okay, well, I think you answered them because the first presentation, when he said it was the only place, that kind of struck me. But what you're saying, it's the best place to avoid window conflicts, driveways, other kinds of things. So that's the basis for this location.
Right, and the other basis for the location is obviously you can't see it because everything's underground. There are existing facilities on both of those streets, and this reg station will connect to those facilities to improve the reliability and the service to the neighborhood.
Okay, all right, very good. That answers the questions I have. All right, would the appellant like to speak? Do we have hands up, Cerise? Let me see. I don't see any. Any
No
appeals?
hands. Did you mean you are ready for the public? Is that what you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, whoever appealed.
Because
So-
that
so we
was
got two.
PG&E. That was the ones who just spoke. They represented,
Okay,
I believe.
So now, yes, we're going to, I guess, Josh.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Clue.
We're going to Josh, which bums me out that there are so many people who show up to tree removal hearings to argue for removal, and here I am, the one guy trying my best to do as little damage as possible to our canopy. I actually want to thank PG&E for showing up. I've sat through these hearings for 8 years. And this is the second time PG&E has shown up when there was a tree on the agenda for a removal per PG&E asset. The first time was also a gas project, and that also required mass removal of trees that had just been planted, in that instance by Friends of the Urban Forest, and that looks like what we're talking about here. The word tree relocation was used. I don't see how this is a relocation. This looks like a removal. So it would be worth clarifying. Are you talking about taking the tree that currently exists and putting it somewhere else so that we don't lose all of the years of growth and establishment and money that has been invested into that establishment? Or are we just talking about, I don't know, it wasn't clear. The words matter here. I would point out this is exactly the right tree, and this tree was here before this project. It's a magnolia that's on the city's approved street tree list. So it is not a case of the wrong tree in the wrong place. This is the right tree in the right place. And the other thing is that with regard to underground infrastructure, it was said that there is ample space along the block to plant a replacement tree. Well, when you're planting a tree, the city has to go through the Underground Services Evaluation, or the USA. I can't remember what the A stands for, but basically you're looking at underground infrastructure. So I'm not clear how there's ample space on the rest of this block for a tree that also has to look at underground infrastructure. And yet this is the only place that this particular asset can go, again, because of potentially conflicting infrastructure. That sounds to me like something is not correct there, because you can't just put a tree anywhere, regardless of what's going on underground, Just like apparently you can't put this, I can't remember what this asset is called. You can't just put this anywhere. So I don't hear a clear story here. I don't hear that this is that all of the boxes have been ticked here and that this is the absolute only place this tree can go. I don't hear, what are we talking about? Relocation or removal and replacement? Yeah, it sounds to me like this was just the easiest place to put this vault because there were no conflicting underground infrastructure. And that's because there's a tree there. And that's why that tree is
30 seconds.
allowed to go there in the first place. So I have more questions than answers after this presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Clip. Mr. Collins? Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
I have to unmute. There, can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Okay. In the Public Works database, there are 2 trees listed at 45 Brazil Avenue. So I wondered which this was and where is the other basin for 45 Brazil Avenue? Maybe someone from Public Works can answer that.
It's public comment, Mr. Carnes, not question and answer.
Okay, I'll make the comment that the database shows 2 trees at this location.
That's been noted. I will pass that on, that the database may need to be corrected.
Yeah, it does needs a lot of correction.
Anything else, Mr. Carnes?
That's it, Mr. Goldberg.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mr. Chang, only one bite at the apple. I saw Mr. Wong had his hand up. Maybe he wants to speak.
Hello, this is
Yes,
Anson.
Mr. Wong, go ahead.
Yeah, again, this is Anson with PG&E, the project management team of the gas regulator station rebuild. Alluding back to, I think it was Josh who spoke to why this location, wanted to clarify. So a gas regulator station regulates, the gas pressure from, let's just say a high pressure to a lower pressure. So in this area, there's 2 systems. So this location is best to secure the lower system because it's closest to the higher system. So the location of the hydraulics to the gas system is kind of what plays a factor into the vicinity of where this reg station needs to go. And then also the footprint of the reg station includes 2 gas vaults and 1 above ground SCADA cabinet. And that's what we're talking about, the SCADA cabinet being where this tree is. But the gas vaults are really large vaults. They're roughly 7 feet wide and 13 feet long for one of them. The other one is 7 by 9. So as you can see in the photo in front of you, that is roughly where where there's least obstruction and least evasive to the public there. So that's why we chose this location. And unfortunately, our design team is out sick, so they weren't able to come and speak a little bit more to the hydraulics, but I was briefed on kind of the location. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. So you're adding 2 underground vaults to the street or under the sidewalk?
Correct. It will be underneath or flush with the sidewalk. And it would be at the angle closest to us right now on this side of the tree.
Okay. Thank you. Any other speakers on this matter? Mr. Nolte, I see you raised your hand.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
I was having technical difficulties, so I would have spoken on other issues, but I couldn't do so. So I find that, this is very interesting how PG&E picks right where the tree is at, and it's been planted there for at least more than a year. And then all of a sudden, that's the location they want to put it. I would suggest that we get more detailed examining on both sides of the street before we decide this location to be the location of the removal of the tree. Here we have a fairly sized tree, which is at least 10 feet high, and to remove it or replace or place it somewhere else would damage it. And so I would suggest that it stays and that PG&E finds an alternate route. And usually if they are actually did do the work, they should have had at least 2 or more locations when they decided to place the new gas fixture at this location. So I would suggest that they look at their plans and what's on the street and before deciding to move forward with this location. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Nolte. Are there other speakers on this matter? All right, I see none. So with that, we'll close this matter and move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Hearing order 207-328 to consider the removal of 3 street trees with replacement adjacent to 401 to 496 Ivy Street. Staff approved the removals and the public has protested. Mr. Hoffman?
So this is for a living alley project within Hayes Valley area. This is the Ivy Street. I believe the on Ivy from Laguna to Octavia. And it's kind of, it's more of an alley than a street, but they propose to remove 3 street trees. And they will be replacing 2 of them, and one of them cannot be replaced because it is no longer in an approved location. So the first tree is this ficus tree. It's approximately 30 to 35 feet tall. It's in poor condition, or some could say very poor condition. It has previous branch failures, reduced canopy vigor. It has a lot of wounds from being struck by vehicles. There has been sidewalk repairs in the area and undoubtedly root pruning. And the canopy is totally imbalanced. The location can be replaced for this tree. So the approval for this one was mainly on the condition. You can see in this photograph, it's had major failures of one of the main leaders and wounds from being struck by vehicles. So this type of repeated damage to the tree can increase the likelihood of this branch failing in the future. And getting struck by vehicles is just, you know, it's causing damage to the vehicles as well. So, yeah, nobody really wants that. The second tree is this 451 Ivy Street. Oh, let me just clarify the address for this one. This one's at 401 Ivy Street. The second tree is 451 Ivy Street, lemon bottle brush tree. It's about 8 to 10 feet tall. It's in fairly good condition, you know, respectively. It does have a moderate lean into the sidewalk, and it's difficult for people to walk around it in the narrow sidewalk. So pruning won't really help us achieve the access we'd like for this street improvement. So we've approved to remove this one with replacement as well. Again, here's some other angles of the tree. You can see it has that lean into its sidewalk. This tree, 496 Ivy Street, it's at the other end of the block from the first tree. This is a cherry tree. It's dead, or practically dead. The condition is very poor. It doesn't have any leaves, and some of the lower branches aren't even there. So unfortunately, this location can't be replaced because it doesn't meet the planting guidelines for intersections. It's too close to the stop sign and the intersection there. So in Luffy will be collected for the loss of this site. Then again, another angle of the tree. Well, I could be wrong, but maybe I'm getting my story wrong, but it looks like we can plant a new tree at one of these basins. So that location is not viable, but we could put a new replacement further up the block.
Okay.
And that's concludes that presentation.
All right. Very good. Thank you, sir. Would the appellant like to speak, please? Cerise, I don't see any hands. Oh, there it is. Mr. Carnes, go ahead, please.
No, I don't see any hands from the
Mr.
applicant.
Carnes just raised his hands. His hand.
That's the public. Are you ready for the
Yes,
public?
we're ready for them.
Okay.
Mr. Carnes, go ahead.
Hi, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Sure can, sir.
Yay. So I noticed that the replacement locations are specified as 401 to 496 Ivy Street. And there are approximately 20 tree basins along there. If you're going to specify where a tree is going to go, I think you should be accurate and say it's going to go here or here. In this particular photo in front of us, it looks like they picked out 3 places where it could go. But I think saying that the tree is going to be replaced somewhere on the block is not accurate. I think that, those of us listening from the public are the true owners of these trees. The people who live nearby have the trees, have the joy of the tree next to them. However, the trees belong to everybody in the city of San Francisco. And I think when the Public Works comes out with an order or something about replacing trees or locations, I think they should be very accurate about where they're going to put the locations, put the new trees. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Are there other speakers on this? Josh?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Sure can, Mr. Flip.
Just one thing I'd like to point out historically that Hayes Valley has lost a lot of canopy in the last several years because of the large scale ficus removal that happened there and is going to continue to happen there because Hayes Valley has a lot of ficus trees in it. And given what I already said in the general public comment about the state of our canopy and the state of the funding to replace it, I would hope that that would play some role in this consideration. But what I'm really super bummed about is that whoever the applicant is, that they didn't come to this hearing, because I really want to hear more about this living alley. When I hear the words living alley, I assume that we've got some folks that are going to create a space that would encourage people to go there and spend time there, that they're trying to create a place where living beings can go and be with other living beings, not parked cars, not cars smacking into trees, but a safe green space. That's what I hear when I hear the words living alley. I think of trees and understory and plant life and biodiversity and benches and places where people can take their kids. And all I see is an alley. And what I don't understand is why that isn't part of what we're talking about here today. Why are we just talking about, what the existing regulations state about this and that, when these trees are being proposed for the creation of a green space? How are we talking about not replacing all the trees in the creation of a green space? So second agenda item where I just have way more questions than answers. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clip. Mr. Nolte? Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. So, I have a couple statements here. One, I do live in Hayes Valley. I believe that, again, the living alley thing is for the Octavia plan. And so all I'm hearing is really DPW going after the money and then building these alleys all over the place and then taking out streets. And this is going on in Lower Polk and other alleys throughout San Francisco. It's kind of, sort of a response to using money that has been reserved for these sort of things. But again, I have a problem that was also stated that, a whole block, and you can't tell me what the address is or approximate address of each of the trees. You could have put number 1, 2, 3, in the past, it would put the address of the building and then plot number 1, 2, 3, or whatever. I didn't hear that in the presentation. So I find this very disturbing of how these were numbered and also how they were not taken care of. And also, looks like, fairly newer buildings that are there. And so that comes to another question is the property owners apparently not maintaining the trees, especially when you have 3 empty wells on one side of the street. It shows a lack of responsibility and also concern about why we're taking out trees. I can understand the tree next to the stop sign because as it's conflict for us with stop sign in the intersection, but the other 2, I don't quite understand why they have to go. One's a ficus, and that one was also part of the Hayes Valley removal of ficus trees. So now you're going round 2 on that one, and now taking that one out. So because that was probably looked at when we did the Hayes Valley removal of ficus trees. So, I'm concerned about, coming to the plate multiple times to take out trees at the same location. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Mr. Buckley?
Hello, this is William Bulkley. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a landscape architect with Public Works. I'm the designer of the Living Alley project. And I just wanted to address a few things. This is of an amazing project, and it will be a fabulous improvement to what you're seeing in this picture. I can tell you that. Oh, thank you, Brian. So these are, I'm not sure, this is the planting plan, which does have the exact locations of where the trees are going to be planted. And I just wanted to say it's a very unique condition. These sidewalks are super narrow and they require both 4 feet clear on both sides for ADA access. And that includes height, up to 6.5 feet high and the 4 feet wide clearance. Plus, every tree well, new tree well, has got to be 3 feet wide because we found over different projects that anything less than 3 feet wide, the trees get damaged and they have to be removed. And it's a lot of expense to put things in without having them removed. So we've developed a prototype on this street where we can put a small strip of tree grate at the side of the sidewalk where we need additional pedestrian passage, that 4-foot path of travel, and cover up 6 inches of the tree well. But underneath, we still have 3 feet of tree well, but above we have 4 feet of path of travel. And we've looked and searched, and we have tried to infill as much as we possibly can in this street. But due to many utilities and due to the fact that it's very irregular widths, we can't put trees in everywhere, even with that innovation. So we are not only putting, as you can see, we are at the top, the drawing at the top, we are putting in extensive sidewalk planting, and we are creating seating and bench areas. Both of the intersections are going to be raised, so traffic will be slowed down. There will be enhanced paving and local artist designed printed paving to create a sense of identity and place for the street. And
30 seconds.
the same thing is happening at the Octavia. We are also putting in bulb outs, necking down the sidewalk, putting in extensive planting and seating, and we're hoping that it will slow down traffic and create a better place for people. And we're trying to put as many plants in as we possibly can. But the 3 that we have got to come out.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. I think you clarified some of the questions people have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Mr. Carnes, you've already had one bite at the apple on this one. Any new speakers? Am I correct? Yeah, Mr. Carnes is one of the first speakers. Okay. If there's no new speakers, we'll move on to the next item. We'll close this one. Item number 6 on the agenda, hearing order 207-329, to consider the removal of 1 street tree without replacement adjacent to 45 Chenery Street. Staff approved the removal, and the public has protested. Mr. Hoffman?
This tree is adjacent to 45 Chenery Street. There's 2 trees at this location adjacent to this property. And to clarify, this is tree site number 2. Tree ID is there for you guys to see. If you are calling in, it's 225324. That's the tree ID. This is an application. This is utility pole replacement. The tree's about 30 feet tall, 16-inch DBH. The condition is pretty poor, maybe fair, relatively to some other trees we have. But it has a moderate lean into the street. There's bark damage from vehicles, and there has been a significant limb failure, probably from being hit from a vehicle. The reason we've approved this tree, though, is mainly because the utility pole replacement will likely have significant consequences to the tree health. And even if they pruned it to complete the pole replacement, being able to prune it you just couldn't do it following ANSI standards. So this tree would just be mutilated if they were going to prune it and do the pole replacement. And unfortunately, this location cannot be replanted because of the utility pole. So again, the condition of the tree is poor. Having those previous failures and being able to be struck by vehicles increases the likelihood that there will be future failures. And the tree is so close to the pole that when they replace the pole, the roots are likely to have significant impacts. We've received 2 messages from the public regarding this issue, and both have been in protest of the removal. And yeah, there we go.
Can you explain that the in lieu fee was prematurely?
So one of our staff members, I guess, made an error in the process and I guess allowed for the in lieu fee to be paid prematurely. Excuse me.
No problem. Bless you.
And as soon as that that option was available to the applicants, they went ahead and paid that, even though we haven't finished the process yet. So technically they weren't supposed to pay that, even though we have received payment. The invoice has been closed.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is reevaluate. The department is going to reevaluate the assessed value or whatever monetary.
Yes, correct. Yeah, we'll appraise the tree, and following the outcome of this hearing, we'll follow the correct procedure.
Okay, all right. Very good. Thank you. Okay. I guess PG&E, is PG&E here to speak to this, or whoever is asking for the tree to be removed? If not, we'll move on to the appellants, members of the public that are appealing the recommendation. I see Mr. Clip. You have your hand up. Could you speak to it, please?
Well, to be clear, I'm not the applicant.
No, you're a member of the public that's got it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in this hearing, you call for the applicant to speak before the public, and I presume that's because you want the public to be informed, which I appreciate. In the last item, you called for the applicant and they didn't speak up, which was odd because apparently the applicant is a city project manager employed by the very department running this hearing. And then he comes in at the end of the rest of public comment and made all kinds of assertions that the public then didn't get to have the opportunity to address, including specifically issues around accessibility, which is something very near and dear to me because I'm not just a disability attorney, but I'm also a certified access specialist, which means I'm one of around 1,000 people in the entire state of California certified to actually talk about that. And that's something I really would have liked to have been able to address in my public comment. Regarding
Mr. Clip, let me just say, yeah, that didn't go according to oil. So if you'd like to make some written comments regarding the last matter on the agenda, please feel free to submit those regarding your issues, and I will include those in my evaluation and recommendation. But
I
for
mean,
now,
I can make them for you in 30 seconds right now if you want.
Well, you know what? We've closed that item, so let's just give you 3 minutes on this item. And if you'd like to submit some written comments, I'd be happy to take those.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, regarding the removal here, it also is not very clear who the applicant is here. Is this a department? Is this a private party? That wasn't stated because the rules regarding replacement and what happens if the permit is granted are very, very different, right? If it's the department, then it's got to be a replacement in the closest possible location within 6 months. If it is a property owner, then it's got to be require that a street tree or trees of equivalent replacement value to the one removed be planted in the place of the removed tree or an in lieu fee, unless there are detailed findings providing the basis for waiving that. So again, I just so wish I knew who that was so I could talk about the right, what standards from Article 16, Section 806 would apply to this proposed removal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clip. I miss, I'll just say Maria. I don't want to butcher your last name, so I apologize. You could help me with that pronunciation.
Yes, hi. My name is Maria Shikazi, and I live at 47 Chenery, which is the building behind 45 Chenery. And I don't have any presentation or slides or, any sort of scientific, well, other than climate change, scientific support to keep the tree. But I just want to say that as a resident, every day I see that this tree is a, contributor to the ecosystem. With nature, there's multiple types of birds that nest in this tree and many different animals that spend time there. It provides a lot of shade and privacy for my neighbors in 45 Chenery. I think they would be probably the most impacted by the removal of the tree, and also some noise reduction. So that's basically the extent of my protest. But yeah, I'm also, the tree does not seem to be in poor condition at all. I'm not sure what poor structure entails. It seems to be in very strong and healthy. So, but again, I'm not an arborist. So that's pretty much it.
Very good. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak today. Mr. Carnes. Go ahead, Mr. Carnes. Mr. Carnes, you're up.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, Mr. Carnes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have two general comments. One, in the Public Works database, there's no tree listed at 45 Chenery Street. So I think that if you're going to bring these matters before the general public, you should get an accurate address. I know that in the past, I've actually protested the fact that some trees on Petro Hill, for example, were not accurately listed in the database, and they pulled the item from the schedule. I would like to request that this would also be removed from the schedule and restated. I'm not sure where this is. I tried to look it up best I could from the information I had. I could not find it. I'd also like to say regarding the previous item that public comment was taken. Several people commented, and then Public Works came in and added a whole lot more data.
Okay, Mr. Carnes, we've closed that matter. I understand that.
Yeah,
I heard Mr. Cliff.
I'm sorry?
That issue's closed. We need to focus on this one.
Well, okay.
Okay. And again, I'll make the same offer to you that I made to Mr. Cliff, that if you'd like to submit something in writing, I will consider that in my recommendations to the director.
Okay, and in the same vein, I would like to suggest to you that if additional information comes in after public comment is practically completed, that you allow the public to come in and comment on that. That's your job as the moderator.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Nolte, I see your hand up.
Yes, good evening. I'm having some different difficulties on my end here today with three computers trying to get onto this Zoom call. And I'm just saying that, again, all I'm hearing is that they want to replace the utility pole, but they don't really say why. Why does the utility pole have to be replaced? And well, and then then we have another complication. We have the arborist for the city saying, well, trees getting hit, well, most trees do get hit if they, the limbs go out into the street. So that happens whether or not they were even have appropriate clearance anyway. So that's not an excuse to take out a tree. And again, I don't see enough information here to warrant a replacement utility pole since PG&E is not talking on this one. And if PG&E comes up again after we speak,
Mr. Nolte, are you still there? I'm unable to hear you. Are you hearing him, Mr. Goldberg?
No, I'm not. I was waiting to see. It sounded like he was having some internet problems, so I was waiting to see if he came back. Okay. I think we had the gist of Mr. Nolte's comment. And again, because of the internet issue, if Mr. Nolte, if you have additional information that you would wish, if you could get that in tomorrow to Urban Forestry, I'll add that to my considerations. So with that, we'll close that matter and move on to the final item on the agenda. Item number 7 on the agenda, hearing order 207333. This supersedes order number 207330 to consider the removal of 3 significant trees on private property with replacement of 2 street trees adjacent to 4200 Geary Boulevard at the parking lot at the 383 6th Avenue frontage. Staff approved the removals, public has protested. Mr. Hoffman.
So these trees are along, as you said, the 383 6th Avenue frontage. First, this one doesn't show the tree IDs, but I could get you guys the tree IDs if you like at a later time. Just send me an email. I don't know, did they do all 3 trees? Yeah, okay, so the first tree is in good to fair condition. The tree has a bark canker that's prominent, and you can see that it's sapping. These trees were approved because they're within the applicant's development project footprint. So our inspecting arborist for this case approved these trees because the new building is where these trees are currently. So the trees have been appraised, and in lieu fees would total to $13,100. And if approved, the applicant proposes 2 new trees to be planted at the site, and 9 trees to be protected during the construction project. So these are significant trees within the private property. We have a 14-inch DBH tree, again, with some minor canker. And we have a 12-inch DBH tree with canker as well. I would call this a little bit more than minor, but and again, the 12-inch tree. And we've received 2 letters of protest for these magnolias.
Okay. Is a project sponsor here, and does the project sponsor wish to speak? Ms. Ma, you the project sponsor?
Yes.
Very good. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen Ma, and I'm a senior project manager at the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation, or TNDC for short. We're building 98 units of 100% affordable senior housing at 4200 Geary Boulevard. This has been a work in progress since January of 2020, with construction beginning as soon as late February next year. For those who don't know TNDC, we're an affordable housing developer, property manager, and service provider in San Francisco, and operate over 45 buildings across 7 neighborhoods. We pride ourselves on our holistic understanding of homes, health, and voice, with housing being among the items essential to a person's health. These 98 units of affordable senior housing comes from years of advocacy, with a lot of thanks to the work led by former supervisor Sandra Lee Fewer, community members, and now continued by Supervisor Chan. This is pretty needed senior housing for this community and for all of San Francisco. This project serves low-income seniors who can't meet the income threshold for a lot of traditional affordable housing. There's 20 units set aside for formerly homeless seniors, 30 units for extremely low-income seniors, meaning seniors on SSI, 12 units for senior veterans, and then 36 units for seniors earning no more than 50% of the area median income. The building is rich with services, amenities, 2 in-house social workers, a rooftop urban agriculture space that provides residents with free and fresh produce, ample community gathering space on the ground floor and upper courtyard, and of course, well thought out landscaping to benefit both residents and the surrounding community. These particular trees, while in the public right of way, fall within our property line, as mentioned, and it's just kind of where our building is going to go. We absolutely agree that the tree-lined streets are valuable assets, and we will maintain all of the sidewalk trees on 6th Avenue. But with the affordable housing crisis and just trying to maximize how many units we can get into this building, there's no other choice for these particular trees. It is important to note that in addition to keeping all of the sidewalk trees on Geary and on 6th Avenue, we will be adding another street tree. Our landscape architect is also available on this call right now as well.
Okay. Question, according to the order, it says you just mentioned you're going to be adding 1 tree to the site and you're going to replace 2 street trees. Is that correct?
I'll let Maya show this too. I think we sent over some renderings of this as well.
Okay. Ms. Nagasaka, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. I was hoping to share my screen if that is
Yes,
okay.
I'm going to promote you to panelist, so take just a moment, and then
Okay.
once you come
Great.
over, you'll need to unmute once again.
So I
Ms.
should,
Nagasaka, you're the project landscape architect?
correct. We are
Okay.
the landscape architecture firm. Okay.
So you will need to go ahead and unmute yourself once again, and then you'll be able to share as well. There. Okay, we can see your screen.
Okay, sorry. I was looking for the icon to unmute myself.
That's okay. You can,
okay.
once you begin speaking, then you'll
Mhm.
have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Maya Nagasaka from Miller Company Landscape Architects, and we've been working with TNDC and YA Studio Architects for this much needed affordable housing project. I'll be speaking mostly in regards to what we are saving and what we endeavor to propose. And just wanted to show this diagram so that it's more clear to everyone else. Currently, we have 4 existing street trees, magnolia trees along 6th Avenue and 5 on Geary Boulevard. We are proposing 1 new street trees along 6th Avenue. We had originally proposed for another tree on Geary, but there has been some movements from various agencies that we work with, PG&E, SFPUC, and DPW. So just wanted to let you know, we know that we need to plant street trees every 20 feet along the street sidewalk. But there are many constraints, and also BUF, also DPW has clearance requirements for these elements. So I just wanted to go through those. We currently have a new street light along the north side, and that's based on the photometric studies done by our engineers, and SFPUC requires that street light. The street tree needs to be 20 feet away from the street light, and also 20 feet away from our street tree. And this room, we just don't have enough room to provide that. On top of it, we have a lot of utility lines in here. The other constraint that we have is this accessible loading zone that is close to the main entrance. This is also regulated by the ADA coordinators at DPW, and we are not allowed to plant any trees. These are the 4 magnolia street trees that we are keeping and protecting throughout construction. This intersection needs to be clear for site clearance, and that's another regulation we have from BUF, where we have to be 25 feet away for incoming
30
traffic.
seconds.
So we had another tree over here, but unfortunately PG&E had asked us to asked our engineers to put these transformers, so we were not able to plant another tree. And 20 feet from this tree is actually where this transformer is. Just to let everyone know that we do have a courtyard with 13 new trees. Most of them are California native trees. We are promoting wildlife habitat for birds and butterfly, and we also wanted to create this retreat for the staffs, the seniors, and the families who will be using this facility. So thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Okay. So with that, can we move on to public comment? Mr. Carnes, get your hand up.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can, sir.
Okay. By the way, I fully approve of low-cost housing, senior housing. So my comments are more about the planning of placement of trees. The order indicates that 7 trees will be added near 4200 Geary Street. I'm not sure where those are going. I would hope that in the future, when trees are proposed for a new location, that DPW or BUF, indicate, roughly where those trees are going to be placed. And, saying, we're going to put in 7 trees near here, that's probably not good enough for the public to really get a feel for what's going to happen. So anyway, good luck with the project, and please be more accurate with our street trees. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Carnes. I don't, and do you want to speak to that? Mr. Carnes referenced 7 new trees. I don't see that in the order on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit confused where that's coming from.
Okay, all right, very good. Mr. Klimp, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thanks. Just seconding the 7 tree thing regarding the retreat or the inside courtyard. Just to note that those are not protected trees, and anyone could cut them down at any time. I mean, they could even not be planted, and no one would have a right to enforce that or make the developer do it. So I'm on the mailing list for this project, and I signed up for it because the minute I saw this project come up over 3 years ago, I thought, okay, I know where this is headed. They're going to cut down the trees, and they're going to do it in the name of affordable housing, because I have yet to see an affordable housing development in this city or any housing project figure out how to build without destroying existing healthy trees. And for all the years I've been on the mailing list, I have not seen an email come through that mentioned tree removal. So this housing project has been in the works for several years, and yet here we are for the first time in the obscurity of this public works hearing, bringing down more trees. I also want to note that on the October 5th 2002 tree removal hearing, San Francisco's urban forester said that the department doesn't approve trees for removal for construction activities, that if trees are in reasonable condition, the Bureau of Urban Forestry would deny those for removal. And I would invite this hearing officer to go back and review the video on that hearing and then explain to the public why our city's urban forester would say something like that. But then we sit here at this hearing today and get exactly the opposite. I've heard nothing about these trees being hazardous or in poor condition. We're talking about losing multiple large statured mature trees, despite the fact that this hasn't been in the email outreach to the public, and despite the fact that our city's urban forester says that this department denies trees for removal when those trees are in reasonable condition. When I saw this project come up over 3 years ago, I could have predicted this hearing because in San Francisco, it's rinse and repeat. Developers, whether it's affordable housing or not, come here looking for tree removal approval. And they talk about the important assets that the project will bring, and the city gives them approval. What I couldn't have predicted was that our city's urban forester, which is the person responsible for protecting and growing our urban forest, would actually say out loud that the department doesn't just approve for construction. But here we are, years later and years into this project's works. So I look forward to the day that we can have trees and housing because we need both of those for our future. And I look forward to the day that our city's urban forester denies approval for removal of trees that are in reasonable condition. And rather than require the public to pay the $300 appeal fee out of their own pocket and go to the Board of Appeals and try to stem the bleeding of our urban canopy, rather than require the public to do that, make the developer do it. Make PG&E go to the Board of Appeals and explain it. Make them pay that fee and go to the Board of Appeals and explain everything that they've considered short of further reducing our urban forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clip. Mr. Nolte?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, great. This is on my third computer. So anyway, so problem I have here is I lived a block away, and that was a funeral home. But TNEC.
Mr. Nolte, you're having computer problems again. Did you want to try and call in? We'll hold off and listen for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. We'll start the 3 minutes again. Go ahead.
Oh, I hope that doesn't happen again. So as I was saying, that the issue with this is that you have a back courtyard. If you redesign the building, well, that would have taken care of those 3 trees that are being removed, and therefore no need to remove the trees and just have a smaller courtyard, which would benefit the whole community versus just the property. So that is one issue. Next issue is that TNEC has a poor record of dealing with their trees, and it's been gone on and off with each one of their properties over the years, how they put them in, and then for whatever reason, a couple of years after the building is built, some of them are gone. So, I find they do not have a good history of keeping their street trees after the development is developed. And for whatever reason, they don't replant them. And if they do replant them, they're destroyed by whatever neighborhood they're in. So I would be more concerned about them saying that they're going to protect these trees during construction. I would want to make sure that that is put into the order, that the existing trees that are there and that no other tree would be damaged. And if they are, they would be fined the max, because they have to learn their lesson about how to deal with the properties correctly and also follow the guidelines in Article 16. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Are there any other speakers on this matter? Hearing none, I believe that will conclude our hearing tonight. Again, anyone who might have been invited to send in written comments, please get those in tomorrow if you can. I would appreciate that. I'd like to try and write it up on Wednesday. With that, I have nothing else other than to thank you for your time and your courtesy. And with that, we'll conclude the hearing.